Welcome to the Digital Culture Podcast, a podcast for people working in the creative and cultural sector and want to know more about digital. I'm your host, James Akers. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Digital Culture Podcast. I'm James, the tech champion for data analytics and insight. I'm a middle-aged white man in my blue room still in Preston, got brown hair, very unseasonably warm on the 10th of March, 2025. And my guest today is the longest-serving tech champion that we have in the team, Mr. Dean Shaw.
Hello. By 1 month, it must be said.
Yes, by 1 month.
Yes.
Got there just before.
Just got before you, yes. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Dean Shaw. I'm the tech champion for content creation. I'm a white man, stereotypically losing my hair. Today, wearing a black hoodie because down south in Cambridge it is unseasonably rather chilly. For some reason, up north it is warmer.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's gorgeous up here today. Beautiful sunshine. Cambridge, it's over to the east of England, isn't it?
Certainly is. East of England, yes. Up the M11 if you're leaving London. And so, yes, as you said, I've been a tech champion now for 6 years and been covering the Cambridge and East Anglia region as well as the whole of England for the Digital Culture Network.
Beautiful. And what goes on in Cambridge? What's East Anglia like?
Obviously, we've got a lot of universities in the region, so not just Cambridge, but also you've got Norwich as well. So there's a real vibrant music scene, live music scene. There's lots of independent artists. And also, actually, just thinking about it, there's more museums as well, tucked away with lots of interesting artifacts as well and little stories. Remember the Chain Forge Museum in East Anglia. And a few dance as well, Dance East over in Ipswich. So there's quite an eclectic mix of things going on. But the downside of the region is the transport links, which are pretty poor. And most of the times you have to prepare to be disappointed with the trains. Prepare yourself for the worst.
And where are you from originally, Dean? It doesn't sound like a Cambridge
No,
accent.
I don't. What does a Cambridge person sound like? I think I'm actually from Essex. And as soon as I say the word Essex, people go, oh yeah, I can tell. But yeah, from Essex. And I'm right on the Essex-Suffolk-Cambridgeshire border. So I've got a toe in everything. But yeah, originally Essex boy.
You're one of the only tech champions to own not only a camper van, but also a sports car. Would you say you have an interest in motor cars?
My career started really with motorsport. So I've loved motorsport, Formula One and cars and Top Gear. And I suppose as social media developed, that's where I found my niche. I was able to do short form documentaries on Facebook and YouTube, and that got lots and lots of attention. I just like getting out and about. And when you're driving, I quite like open road, clears your mind. You're sitting there with your own thoughts and things. And some of the best epiphanies I've ever had have been behind the wheel of a car.
It's really good for listening to podcasts as well when you're driving.
Exactly right, yeah.
Content, your specialist area, it can be many things. So talk me through those then, Dean. What, aside from podcasts, what else have you got?
Over the years, I would say predominantly we started off with coming out of the pandemic with through the pandemic, everyone was interested in streaming. That's gone away a bit now because people want to re-engage with their audiences in a more tactile way. Ever since we started, it's always been like, I've got no money, I've got no skills, all I've got is my phone. And that to me is perfect. As long as it's like a Nokia 6210, that would be difficult. But if it's a modern day smartphone, even a few years old, you're able to record a podcast, you're able to take relatively nice photos, and you're able to create pleasing videos as well. So I don't think there's a sort of a hard and fast rule of what is the standard case, but I've seen a lot of work with smartphones, editing on CapCut. I'm starting to work with people who have maybe started a channel or their content isn't quite getting the audience it deserves. So we look into YouTube and what we can learn from the audience behavior, because you can do a lot with search engine optimization. You can put keywords and tags and descriptions, but sometimes it might just simply be down to the video doesn't get started quick enough, or it doesn't get to the point. It doesn't reaffirm what it's about. It doesn't reassure the audience that it's going to be about a particular thing, and they get lost and they're there to find out some information or to be entertained. So therefore you can lose an audience like that quite quickly. And that sometimes is a difficult conversation to have with somebody. But, oh yeah, your video would be great if you just lopped the first 2 minutes off of it. And they go, what? I spent ages doing that. And you're like, that's tough, isn't it? It is cut to the chase. The audience appetite for being strung along is non-existent. They just move straight on. And with YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, the cross-pollination between those two is like the amount of organizations I speak to who do lovely Instagram Reels and get maybe 1,000 views. And I go, "Oh, have you thought about putting it on YouTube Shorts?" And they're like, "No. YouTube's just used for some place that we put our stuff that we don't know what to do with." And I'm like, second largest search engine. If you're looking for a more global audience, probably it's a good idea to put that video that you've done on Instagram, drop it onto YouTube and just see what happens. And those that have seen like 1,000 or so different views from a different type of audience. If you allow me to, James, I came out of this analogy a little while ago, right? Instagram is like the advertisement board in your local village or town at the bus stop. Everybody who's on the bus knows it's there. They know about the guitar lessons. They know about the free drinks or the drinks on Sunday at the village hall. And that's it. You're just preaching to the converted already. But what YouTube is that billboard that you see on the bus as you're going down the road and you go, "Oh, that's different." And when I think about it more, you've got more chance of reaching out like national, international audience that might benefit your business model even more than just preaching to those people who've already chosen to follow you. And you know what Instagram's like. You never ever publish a video and it goes to the 100% of your audience. It goes to like maybe 10% of them. So it's a closed circuit. It's like the feedback loop that doesn't exist. It's not going any further. If you're putting out these videos on Instagram, it might be an idea just to put them on YouTube Shorts and just see what happens. You may find yourself with 1,000 more views, 1,000 more followers than you had before.
Great. A real good tip there for reaching new audiences. So with those platforms you talk about, YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, that's obviously been kick-started by TikTok and everything there. Is that something you're helping organizations with, potentially using that as a channel, creating content for that?
Yeah. I think with TikTok, it's one of those ones where, as I said at the opening, I'm a middle-aged man, right? The chances of me being on trend on TikTok are few and far between. Don't get me wrong, I've been in a couple of my daughter's TikToks and we've done incredibly well, but I don't understand what lends itself to being a trend more than the next 46-year-old man. So when I get people who are of a similar sort of age or demographic, they're like, "We know that there's an audience probably for our content on TikTok, but we don't know what to do. We don't know how to do this," and so on and so forth. Sometimes it's a good idea to look at another organization or another artist that you like or are doing well on there and seeing what they're doing and try and get a steer from that and just try and think, is this something that we can invest our time into? A lot of the videos that work well on TikTok are trend-based. They are trends for inexplicable reasons. Sometimes you're like, how, what? And some of them are started by companies like Currys, or PC World, where, they do something.
They're great.
And then everyone jumps on that. And then all of a sudden, you've got your sort of 5 minutes of fame or 15 seconds of fame, maybe even. The longevity stuff that really helps boost your brand, I still think is that stuff that either does one or two things that entertains or informs. And if you can do both of that in there, then you've got a chance of that video living a lot longer. So Instagram is great. YouTube's great. TikTok, if you've got the capacity to do and you're prepared to spend a bit of time on the platform and learn how to do it, which is difficult because anybody who works in an office and sees somebody on their phone constantly will automatically assume that they're not actually working. And I get this a lot with a lot of the people that do the social media marketing. They're like, "Oh, is there a way I can edit it on desktop?" If they're talking about editing on CapCut. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, get the desktop version." It's just that if my manager sees me on my phone all day, every day, just sort of scrolling endlessly, they're going to assume I'm not working. And I hadn't even considered that as a problem at first. So you do need to spend a lot of time on these platforms to understand them and to understand what makes them unique. YouTube is competing against TikTok in the sense it's now doing vertical videos that are short form. That's competing with Instagram Reels as well. You've now got Spotify who are doing videos as well. So that's eating into YouTube's market share. So I expect eventually YouTube is going to push podcasts a lot more. You've just got to keep an eye on the competition and whatever they're going to be promoting. Like YouTube Shorts a couple of years ago was unheard of, but now all of a sudden it's a mainstay of their viewing figures. If you could have jumped on that bandwagon early, you'd have had a march on anybody else starting because there was just simply not enough content to meet the demand. So I think if you can keep an eye on what these platforms are offering and jump on that, then you're in a better position to get yourself noticed.
And it's not always about creating brand new content, is it? With these things, you could reuse little snippets from existing work.
Yeah, definitely. I think with a lot of organizations, they've got a rich library of content they probably don't realize what to do with. They're like, oh, okay, we've got this, I don't know, 10-minute long chat with somebody. And it was a great monumental moment for us. It was a really positive interview. But now what do we do with it? Nobody's really sitting through the 10 minutes. There is software out there that can edit it down for you and pick out the sound bites that would work well on social media. Some of it's free or with a trial, some of it's with a paid subscription. But it's actually relatively easy now to upload a video to this sort of service and then have it run through the entire video and pick out the best clips for it, which you can then repurpose onto Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. It even adds the captions as well. So it gives you that full ecosystem to doing it. So there are solutions out there if you have a library of work that you want to explore the possibility of reworking into some sort of vertical. It's really consumable content. It works so well on the phone, and you can repurpose existing long form content that's going to really drive more attention to your channels, wherever they may be.
I think what's really good about them now is that they are all web-based. Instead of having to contact an IT team to install something on your computer, they're very different now. You can do a trial or, as you say, a subscription on an online platform, upload your video to that, and everything is done in the cloud, which massive efficiencies there, isn't there? It's really
Exactly.
good.
How many times have we spoken to an organization that says, look, I'm running off of a IT department basic Windows 98 computer that barely can open Word, and I want to start editing video, and it's first things first, where there's a real sort of hardware problem there. But nowadays, like you say, with the power of cloud computing, I was talking to an organization just this morning who started their edit off on the cloud, and they were running an entire edit on there, and they had different cuts and transitions, and it was doing it in real time whilst streaming over Teams with me. So that shows you that sort of the power of that. That's something unimaginable just even a couple of years ago.
And aside from the editing and using the platforms for that, and maybe using your phone to capture content, are there any tools that can create nice, fancy transition things with your logo and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've been using CapCut probably for like the last 3 years. I've started off with Final Cut Pro, and I always found that to be simple, relatively professional. I know my friends in like broadcast use Avid and Adobe, and they're very complicated. And for what you're looking to do, you really want it to be quite intuitive, and you don't really want to be sitting there struggling to try and understand why the crossfade dissolve is only at 30% when you want it at 35%. And it's too precise. You just want it to go from what you imagine to what happens on the screen as quickly as possible. And I think CapCut is by far probably the best one out there. I know there's people out there who are using Canva video. So sometimes it might be they've got no idea where to start, and there's like a template available that gets them started, and then they just basically drop the video in there and so on and so forth. With CapCut, it's a free version entirely at the moment. There's no restriction on that. The only restriction is like all of the good stuff, like the voice isolation, some of the transitions, some of the animated text. That's part of the pro package. After a decade and a half of experience, I still can't mix audio as good as an AI can. I've done so many workshops where we'll go, right, use your phones, go out there, film something. I give them a few examples of stuff that works, and off they go. And they all go off in little groups, so they go and do some filming. And then they come back, and then you realise that one group, for some reason, unbeknown to anybody, decided to do the whole piece to camera on a dual carriageway in London. And you're like, what were you thinking? And they're like, oh yeah, you can't really hear them. And it's no, you didn't have a microphone or anything. You just used the microphone built into the phone. I put it through CapCut voice isolation, and it took the background noise out, so all of the cars rushing past, the HGVs, all of that, and it just concentrated on the person's voice. And I thought that would have taken me days, and it would have never have sounded half as good as that. And it's that kind of innovation that don't want the world being taken over by AI, and I like to preserve the creativity for those individuals that can do it and do it themselves. I don't like AI created art, but as a tool, yeah, of course, use it. It's like building a house and saying, I'm not going to use a cement mixer because I don't believe in it. It's actually, it makes life a lot easier if you did.
That's a good analogy, that one.
I try, James, I try. But yeah, honestly, so with regards to some of the tools that you can use on CapCut, it's just far beyond what even some of the most expensive software options. If you're looking to do more longer form stuff where you've got a documentary head on and you don't want to be sitting there using CapCut because the interface is more designed for short form content, I would look at something like DaVinci Resolve. There's a free version that covers probably 90% of everything you're going to need. And I've got professional friends who are making feature films and music videos, and they're using DaVinci. So if you're looking to maybe personally upskill yourself, download DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic. It's a free piece of software that has color grading, audio. It's an editor. It does everything. It's a wonderful piece of software. There is a paid version, but doubt probably anybody would really need to download that to get started with. And that works on PCs and that works on Macs as well. And that's a really good piece of software.
One of the things that we do at the Digital Culture Network is that we start from free. If we can give you some advice and options for free, that's the one. And then maybe you'll need to pay for different services. And you mentioned there about Canva and the editing tools in that. That's a very design-based tool, isn't it? Canva. But if you're a non-profit organization, you can get it for free. You can get the premium version of that for free.
Yeah.
So do check that out if you've not got it already.
Yeah. And in terms of thumbnails, which are really important for like YouTube and also for having a cover for your short video, you can really design it with your own brand colors, your own brand identity, just like we're going to do with the thumbnail for this podcast. We can jazz it up and we can put our own brand identity and our own branding on there. And that's something that Canva does incredibly well. CapCut also has a feature where you can edit the cover as well. So you can pick the frame that you want. You can add your font, you can add your brand, you can add your colors. And that is the first frame that you see when you scroll up. Before it starts, there's like a freeze frame and then the video starts. So that brief millisecond. And that sometimes can be just enough for your audience to go, that's from blah, blah, blah. That's another video from XYZ. So that's another free tip as well. But I totally agree with you. Whatever we can do for free to start with, and if you need to pay for the extra bit, then by then you've already exhausted the free option and has gone as far as you possibly can with it.
Do you get similar requests when you speak to individuals and organizations in the sector?
Yeah, I've been doing quite a bit of YouTube audits, which has led on to actually more interesting conversations about content in general. So a lot of organizations maybe have a YouTube channel, or individuals as well, individual artists, people who are in themselves quite great personalities to have on a video. And for some reason, their videos are just not quite getting the audience that it deserves. So the YouTube audience has been very popular. Also, the editing side of things, as more people have got the confidence to put themselves in front of a camera or even behind a camera and film and do a voiceover, they're trying to get a better understanding of what it takes to see their vision on screen. Are they missing a trick, or how can the edit be improved? And sometimes it could be the quickest conversation you ever had. It's like, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. And I go, share your screen, or I share my screen, and I just show them how I would work in CapCut or at Final Cut. And in my industry, like a colleague would say to me, how did you get that shot? And then I'd be more than happy to share that with them. And I used an ND filter, I used a blah, 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 or I used this lens or whatever. And I feel like that's just happens with the Digital Culture Network. I get people turn up and say, I've seen this, and they show me it. How do I do that? And I go, that's easy. That's a template on CapCut.
So you do a lot of your support online over Microsoft Teams and do screen sharing, as you say there. But you also get out and about, don't you?
Oh, I love to get out and about. Yes. As the transit camper van owner, self-converted, of course. But yeah, I just like to engage with as many sort of like organizations as possible, really, because I think, like, for instance, recently I was at the Isle of Wight and I was working with an organization there who was able to bring I think it's about another 15 or so organizations or representatives from organizations on the island in as well. So it meant I got to see so many people. We had people of all ages creating content, and they were making the videos of their own or in their own vision, and then using a shared screen and a projector, we were editing them together. And it was just quite funny to see how you can make little tweaks to it to make it more funny or to make it sad or to add music to it to make it feel a different way. You can see the inspiration that people get from that. And that's not saying I'm blowing my own trumpet. That's almost like you're showing them how easy it can be done. And when somebody shows you that, it's, I don't know why I've been waiting so long to get this started. And your first video is going to be rubbish. Everybody starts off with a dodgy video. I'm sure if you was to look for any of the most successful content creators and look at their first content, it is shocking. And it's going to be shocking for a long time until you get to work out what it is that you want to achieve, how it should look, what works for you, and most importantly, what works for your audience. And then also, I think, like, when you look at a lot of people say, "Oh, I've only got a channel, they've got 100 views on it," and everybody started off with 0 views at one point as well. So don't worry about that. And I think when you meet people face to face, it's easy to convey that, and they think, "Oh, actually, it's not a big deal if I've got no subscribers. Nobody cares." And it's great because you can make as many mistakes as you like. And then you can then start to, once you get that audience, like you think of somebody like the Tank Museum, who's got millions and millions of views, and I think maybe over 1 million subscribers now, certainly a lot of subscribers. The fear is that if they don't do another successful, great video, that they could start losing audience. So the pressure is even worse for them, whereas you've got no pressure. The bar is so high. And just to give you some context, the person who does most of their content uses an old-ish Samsung phone and edits on CapCut, and they are making bank with their YouTube channel. They are making money from it. They are doing really well with their online store, and they've not lost sight of what works for them. They've not gone out and bought like an Arri Alexa large format 50,000-60,000 pound camera. They've gone, no, the Samsung works for us. CapCut works for us. We'll stick with what we know. And they've just concentrated on the storytelling.
And they've done the integration with products into the YouTube channel, haven't they?
Yeah.
So whatever tank, for example, is on screen, that's what it links to in the shop.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I think probably there's going to be more tie-in as time goes. Certainly throughout this year, you're going to see more tie-ins with me and working with Catherine, who is our e-commerce tech champion, because the shop the look is a big thing in retail, and a video or a product that's seen on camera, and you can then go and buy the product through the e-commerce store. It's just a natural progression, and I think a lot of organizations could benefit from that. We're going to be doing a webinar which is going to cover product photography, just using a phone, nothing serious, some wallpaper, some borrowed pot plants, some props, and using natural light. So we didn't rent a studio, we didn't rent a turntable, we didn't rent a massive camera or anything like that. We just simply used our phones. In fact, we actually used 2 types of phones. One which was a iPhone 12, and the other one which was an iPhone 16. And the reason being is the iPhone 12 went flat because we used it so much that we had to quickly diversify into a newer phone. But by and large, I mean, we just basically got a lot of the products from the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. We shot a few of their products, and we worked with the person there to try and get the most out of it within the limitations of the building, of the lights, and of the equipment we were using. And I think we succeeded. I think it looks really good. And the upside of that is we've now got both Catherine and I a webinar between us that's going to go on to describe our process, what we learn, any quick tips. I'm all for that, quick tips. I don't know. If you gave me a manual to read, I'd just give me the headlines.
Amazing. I'm just looking now. So that's on the 8th of April, 2025. So come and join us on that for the webinar. It sounds like it's going to be good.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think it is. And I think, I say, it's a long time coming. This is like an Avengers team up between e-commerce and content, because you can't do one without the other.
Aside from your one-to-one support calls and going out to see people and doing workshops, you've been writing articles, and you had a webinar recently as well.
Yeah, most of the time with the webinars, I'm trying to cover things that will matter to the most amount of people. So it's not quite as niche as it could be. But obviously, we've got to understand that people are coming at it from different perspectives. So if you are learning something new for the first time, or you're interested in it and you're at that sort of entry level or that mid level where you maybe just need to know a few quick wins, I would say that's what my webinars are really for. So if you see ever a webinar from that, don't worry that it's going to be super, super complicated. I just like to be able to explain things in a really easy to understand way and just give people the confidence to give it a go themselves and know that if they are giving it a go themselves and they ever do find themselves get stuck, they can just reach out and speak to me. But the articles are great. Everybody learns differently. So sometimes for a lot of people, reading an article has been more beneficial than watching a webinar or watching a video that I've made. So there's different ways that we go about trying to upskill people as best I can. Basically, I'll try and do as many articles as I possibly can as I cover different things as they come up. One of the things I'll probably do more on is accessibility, because that's something that's really important to me and the Digital Culture Network, of course, is to have more organizations understand how they can present themselves better to people with accessibility needs. And I think there's going to be more work done on that so that they can have the confidence to maybe, even if it's just running a video around the building just to say, look, this is how you get into the building. These are the facilities when you get here. This is where you can park. It gives people an idea of what they can expect when they get there, because there's nothing worse than not having an idea of the layout of the building when you're maybe a wheelchair user or you're caring for somebody and you've got to get them from point A to point B. And you just don't know the distance or the facilities when you get there. They might only be watched by 50 people, but it'll be those 50 people that will be visiting your building next. And that is something that's quite important to make them feel welcome. So accessibility is really big on my 2025 agenda. But yeah, more articles, certainly more webinars and more bespoke videos.
Brilliant. You are the content tech champion, so you should be doing more than anybody.
This is very true. It's very true.
Before I wrap things up, have you had a favorite support session with somebody or workshop over the last 6 months that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I've got a really lovely lady who's an artist who has been producing just exceptional video content, like the sort of content where you can see that they put so much time and effort into it, and it really wasn't getting the audience it deserved. And we looked at the analytics, we looked at the thumbnails, the titles, the descriptions, everything we possibly could. And there was only like minor tweaks that needed to be done. A lot of what her audience was seemed to be responding to was like these kind of like vlogs that were about creating art and experiencing places and going there and using watercolors to create these wonderful paintings. But the problem with that was it's just not sustainable for her personally. So she needs to almost have this dual channel where she's got those opportunities where she can go out and about, and then she can also do the stuff in the studio, which are much more easier to maintain. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, she didn't tell me she was going to London or to do anything like what she'd done, but she went to London, just done a little vlog. She went to a few art shops, bought some bits and pieces, and her video had 17,000 views in a week. And I was just like, and I follow her on my YouTube channel. So I was like, oh, look, she's uploaded another video. Isn't that cool? And I was like, whoa, 17,000. And then the fear steps in. What have we done? How did we do it? How can we replicate it? And what has transpired is that people love the storytelling and the experience. And we need to work a way into her life being, or we need to show her being able to maintain that and try and also open up to potential partnerships. So a couple of the art shops that she went to would have benefited, no doubt, by her exposure on this. 17,000 people have all seen these little wonderful niche little art shops tucked away on these little back streets of London that she's shone a light on. So if there's a way of them helping her to make more content, and this is the experience I've had probably maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago working with influencers, is that they might be micro-influencers, but they still have the ability to connect with their audience and work with biggish brands or even mega brands and be an authentic voice to that audience. You're not selling out, you only take on things you want to do. And I felt that there was a good tie-up with that. So we've moved into a new phase of our sort of like our support, which is like almost sharing my experience with working with influencers on how she can contact companies that could benefit from her doing more content on them and their products. So I think it's quite interesting that her audience is responding so well to that kind of content. But it just goes to show you what they're looking for. So they're looking for maybe just a bit of escapism. They're looking forward to seeing these wonderful places that she knows exists. And she looks at the materials that she's going to use, and then she goes off and then she makes beautiful art with it as well. It's trying to make that content in a sustainable way that's not going to burn her out, yet still deliver good viewing figures and hopefully a tie-in, which is going to lead to some financial remuneration, because she won't earn any money from 17,000 views on YouTube, but she might earn a little bit of money from, say, some affiliate links with the companies she's working with. And it could lead on to bigger, more financially sustainable future for her. So yes, it's a new phase that we're entering, and it's after 6 years. It's quite a lovely thing for me to have, where we've kicked it up into another gear with a new case.
Beautiful.
I think people like her and the work she does, it's nice to see them succeed like that, and it is a lovely feeling. And yeah, it makes me feel great about doing the job I do. And that's part of the reason probably why I've been here for 6 years, because you see these success stories and they come around and they come out of the blue when you least expect it. And you work so hard for it, and they work so hard. They work much harder than I do to achieve that. And then all of a sudden it happens and you're like, oh, wow, that's happened. It does put a spring in your step. So yeah, definitely one to remember.
Brilliant. For our listeners to this episode, would you mind wrapping things up into 3 key takeaways?
3 key takeaways that I would say is, do not be put off by not having the latest and greatest equipment. Some of the biggest names out there are using just mobile phones that are maybe a few years old. They're using free software, or they have been using free software to get started. It's better to learn your craft and to use the equipment as much as you possibly can, and then get to a stage where you need to invest in a bit more. Buying the most expensive camera doesn't work. It's an incentive to get you started, because you're like, I've put a lot of money into this equipment, I better get started. But really, it won't help you with your skills to tell a story. That will happen no matter what camera you use. I think the other thing is not to be too put off by the success of others. We're all at different stages of our careers. Some people have had thousands of views and millions of views and have got loads of subscribers, and you just think, it's far too late for me to start. So you might find it now is the right time to start, and you'll find your audience and you can maintain that growth, and it's more sustainable because it's over a longer, more measured pace. So don't worry about comparing yourself to others. But by and large, I'm just here to support you in any which way you find that it's going to help with your content and engaging with that audience as well. So yeah, whatever you need from me, whether it's editing advice, camera advice, techniques, editing. And then once you've got the video, uploading it and trying to maintain that conversation with your audience, it's incredibly important as well. Don't just dump your video on them and just hope for the best. If somebody takes the time to comment, it takes 2 seconds, 1 second possibly, even just to like something. But if they're going to sit there and write a comment, then please have the decency to reply back to them, especially if it's a nice comment. Yeah, I've seen some wonderful comments saying, I love this video, you've really inspired me. And then it's like nothing for months. And that doesn't say that this channel is loved. It says that it's just forgotten about. So please reply to your comments, tell them that you love them, enjoy your audience, because they can be fickle and they can leave you at any time. So yeah, treat your audience well and they'll keep coming back.
There we go. What a wonderful way to end the episode. So thank you for joining us for episode 5 of the Digital Culture Podcast with my guest, Dean Shaw.
Thank you, James, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
There you go. He's here for you. If you want to develop your skills in this area, he's the man for you. So please do get in touch with us.